Welcome back to Building Your Bestseller Author Brand with Lisa Vino. I left off video 1 with market research. I've decided to do a more in-depth look at market research in another video. This is just going to be an overview of the entire strategy of building a brand, okay? So just to review, we've decided that you need to write what you love and figure out what that is so that you're not slogging away writing a series. And I'm going to ask you in a second to write a series in a genre that you hate. And if you hate writing whatever, fantasy, mystery, women's lit, women's fiction, then the readers are going to be able to tell, because you're probably not going to write a book that fits what they love to read, that fits the tropes that they love. And I'm going to talk more about tropes in a second. To figure out what you love to write, remember what, look at what you love to read and decide to write a book like that. If you only read nonfiction, don't set out to write a fiction book. Write what you love. Okay. The intersection of what you love to write and what readers love to read is where you're going to find your best-selling author brand. You're going to go to Amazon Top 100 and look at the genre and subgenre and look for books that you enjoy reading and look for authors to model. And I'm going to give you examples when I do a case study, but finding author models is very, very important because they're going to teach you about marketing. It's basically my quick hack for you to figure out what's selling and how to be successful fast. You're not going to reinvent the wheel. You're going to follow the path that people have already trod. Yes, I want you to write something original and breathtaking and beautiful. And there's honestly, if you're bringing your full force of creativity to the table, there's no way you're going to be a copycat. You're just going to be jumping off of some of the things that you love and some of the things that readers love and creating your own brand. I promise. And that's why I say find a couple author models, because you're going to draw different ideas from different people. And I'll explain more with the example. Okay, so market research part 2, you're going to read all the books. You're going to read if you've decided to model after 2 or 3 particular authors, you're going to read all of their books. I am so not kidding. Again, if this isn't a genre or subgenre you love, then you're going to have trouble with this. But you are going to approach this as a reader first. Why? Because we're going to tap into those streams of readers and we want to give them what they want. And you're going to find that out and you're going to internalize it by reading the books. I did one case study. I want to approach her first and ask her if I can use her, but there's a very, very popular author who exploded. She made 6 figures in 2 months with her releases, and I was reading an interview with her, and she said that she read 200 books in the subgenre. So success leaves clues. You can figure out why someone's successful and why she did so well. Not only is she a great writer, but she knew what she needed to write. And then she made sure her marketing was in line with what readers would want to see and what would flag them and make them want to click. All right, so you're reading the books, then you read the reviews, and you figure out what are fans love, what do readers hate. And that's very important because you want to know what they're expecting out of these books. And you want to give them a satisfying experience. So you're going to make notes if you see anything to give yourself ideas of what readers are enjoying, what you're enjoying. You're going to write notes on what you love too. And I really want you to think of capturing the feeling of, for example, what we love about Harry Potter is, he's this young boy, so this young person, and he doesn't know about this world, and we learn about the world through his eyes and the magic, right? And it's breathtaking and it's exciting, but there's danger. And then suddenly he's powerful, and whenever he's being persecuted by his teacher or by the bad guys, we're with him. We feel that unfairness of the world. And so what are the feelings that are coming up as you're reading? You really want to tap into that. That's going to be part of what the tropes are. And I'm going to talk about tropes in this slide. All right, so you're going to create a swipe file. What's that? That's just a place where you're keeping all your ideas. I take pictures of covers. If there's a blurb that stands out that makes me just excited, I paste it into a document and a reference, where I got it from, the link. I make note of tropes, and again, reader likes and dislikes, and my own likes and dislikes. And some of this I have just in my head, but I definitely do create a file with at least the covers and the blurbs, because when I go to write a blurb, the book description, I will open that file and I will read 50 blurbs or 10 blurbs, and I get the feel for how I want it to sound. It's the same with when I go to write a book. I've probably read a bunch in the genre already, or the subgenre, so I kind of know the feel and what I'm going for. Are you seeing a pattern here? All right, so now you have this in one place, and I need to do another movie on tropes because they're so important. For me, if you Google tropes, you can find them. They're what's common to a genre or a subgenre. So, for example, in military science fiction, having an old, grizzled, space captain who's in disgrace, but then suddenly he needs to save the world, and he's fighting the bureaucracy, and he's fighting the aliens. That would be a trope. They're not going to put a young girl, like in Hunger Games, at the helm of the ship, the spaceship. That would be a different category than militaristic sci-fi. And again, in procedural police drama, it's usually an old grizzled policeman who's getting the job done. And he usually has a sidekick who's a young, beautiful woman, I must say. I've read a couple of these police procedurals. But anyway, those are tropes. In romance, a trope is there's always a happily ever after. In urban fantasy, a trope is the hero or heroine is usually really snarky. They're really sarcastic. I mean, that's kind of fun. So these are the things that are common to the genre and that readers are reading this subgenre or the genre to get more of. Does that make sense? So again, you're tapping into that feeling that readers are feeling, and what makes them feel that way. Is it this young woman against the world and the Hunger Games and she has to fight? Or is it some sort of love story where, they hate each other but they have to overcome that and fall in love, or whatever. So writing down the tropes are extremely important. And people think of them as cliches, and I don't. I think of them as what readers are longing for and what we long for. We want that lesson, we want that feeling, we want that story. And so we return to the genre or subgenre again or again to get that, if that makes sense. Okay? So I'll do another whole video on tropes because they're so important, especially for marketing. And so your swipe file is very important if you're writing down tropes like older man, younger woman romance, or, vampire steals young woman, whatever. Obviously, I know romance a lot better than any other genre. You're going to want to make note of that. And again, it ties into the covers. There are whole swaths of books on Amazon where there's a woman on the cover in a beautiful dress. And if you put a burly man on the cover, it's not going to sell as well. But in another genre or subgenre, you put a woman on the cover and it won't sell as well as that burly man, usually without a shirt. The man, that is, not the woman. All right, moving on. So now we get to the meat and potatoes of the work. You've done the market research, and you have a pretty good idea of what you want to write and what readers are expecting. And so now you're going to plan on writing books that attract readers. I want you to plan a whole series. And depending on what you've read, depends on how you model the series. In romance, usually each book is about a standalone character, or standalone couple, rather. Or there might be a trilogy that follows one couple, right? That's pretty common. Although it's less, readers are liking that less now because it got overdone. You can have a series arc. And again, in sci-fi or fantasy, this is totally different. You can have the same bunch of guys trying to destroy the ring for, 1,000 pages in high fantasy. Okay, so it depends on the genre. Book length is another thing you're looking at when you look at all those books and you read all those books. How long are they? Are they, 700 pages or 100 pages? I mean, you can get away with writing shorts in some genres, and you take your cues from what's popular, what's selling. And I'm going to have you write a tester book. The first book, I actually made mine a little short, but I could get away with that because of the genre I was in. It was only 60 pages, actually. So it was like my tester. And at the end of the book, I actually put in the bag, this is a tester book. Tell me what you think. I'd love to write a whole series. And it grabbed readers enough that they were really interested. And to make sure that book launched successfully, I did find beta readers who read the genre and could give me good feedback. I did hire a professional cover artist. I actually only paid $6 for the first cover, though, because again, this was like my experiment. But the cover fit with the genre. Like, I didn't go into paint and go, well, what should I do? Well, I like Monet paintings. I'll put a Monet painting on the front. I really had someone who knew the genre, and I hired them, and I hired an editor. And so I wrote the tester book, and then once I saw the tester book was taking off, I ended up writing what's called a lead magnet. And there's an amazing book, I think it's free on Amazon, by Nick Stevenson that you must read. I love it. But I wrote a book that ties into the series, and I made it free if you join my mailing list. So then I am building this awesome newsletter with that freebie. And I'm moving a bit quickly now because we're running out of time. But my brand became, once the series was taking off, book 1, I ended up writing, I think I'm up to like 10 books now. So I tested it first, and then I started building a mailing list, and now I have series covers that all match. My newsletter goes out to fans of the series. They sign up to my newsletter to get the free book of one of the books that relates to the series. All the graphics I do kind of relate the same. The world building, I have a whole series arc, so there's a big bad guy they're fighting. And then I started branching out beyond this. I sought out similar authors to me, and I started doing newsletter swaps. So I'm sharing my readers with them, and they're sharing their readers with me. I know I'm going kind of fast here, but I wanted to get to this case study. All right, first, what I did wrong. I wrote a series of Westerns for a publisher, and the covers are all wrong because I actually should have put an example of a correct cover. I should have had a cowboy type guy on the cover. And now I know. Unfortunately, this was with a publisher, so I couldn't go back and change them. And as soon as I get my rights back, I will have this, 7-book series. It didn't sell as well. The books are excellent. I mean, if I do say so myself. But I put a lot of time and effort into writing them. And they fit the market, but the covers don't, and so they don't sell. And I know that now. So then when I went back and I did all this research, which I didn't really have to do a lot of market research because I was reading a lot. And I read this series. Let me just skip ahead to show you my author models. I read a series by Vanessa Vale. I loved it. And I bought like 5 books in the same day. I just was like, I want all of these. I want to read them all in the next few days. Done. So I wanted to write a series like that. And I even wrote my books to kind of the same length, around 140, 150 pages. And I went and I chose another cover artist, Madison Fay, to style her covers. And then I really liked blurbs by Willow Winters. I started writing those. And I studied, I read a lot of other authors, so I studied my author contacts. And I just honed in on what was selling and what was working. And I'm almost out of time, so I'm going to just wrap up. If you want to be successful, you need to focus, you need to write, you need to get professional covers and editing. Write that lead magnet to get readers on your newsletter, build your mailing list, but focus on writing. The end. Any questions?